Sorry, got caught up there for a second. We're back though. But yeah, so where was I? Yes, Crobat, and so Crobat did have air slash as well. It's just that Blue didn't want to click it in case it missed. But yeah, so 0-1, we're 0-8 now. Unfortunately, quite depressingly. It was still a very good game. The hacks definitely impacted on how the results came about. The Thunder Wave was just unfortunate. Sorry, the full power was just unfortunate, but that's to be expected with Thunder Wave. I kind of flew by the seat of my pants following it as well, and was arguably in a losing situation there if I didn't get the free switch into Slazzle. But yeah, the Iron Tail though really did suck. There's no two ways of putting it. But yes, so that was week 8. On to week 9, we have my computer trying not to wet itself. We have the Groningen Noctowls and Super Suna Arashi. This game, as you can see, we brought an expert belt, Salazzle. I'm enjoying using Salazzle now. It was a bit of an issue earlier on. Didn't really like too many matchups, but now it's working well. We have Choice Band Solo because I'll be damned if we don't get a KO with it. A Rest Sleep Talk Giratina with Toxic and Hex. Truly ew. A Z-Splash Solgaleo with Substitute, Sunsteel Strike and Earthquake, and a Comfey with Life Orb Triage. The usual sets with HP Ground, and then finally, because you can't see it, another Choice Scarf Landorus running Earth Power U-Turn Default Sludge Wave. So, oh blimey, we're halfway through. That's a giveaway. So, what we see here is that Super Suna's brought Seismitoad, Hariyama, Naganadel, Torkoal, Metagross, and Lugia. So my play here was to lead Corsola, just to be weird like that, semi-expecting either Seismitoad or Metagross, and banking on the fact that they just click Stealth Rocks because Corsola can do diddly squat. And so what we see here is that Seismitoad leads and he just clicks Earth Power. Less than brilliant start. So we switch into Comfey, and so he brings out Metagross. Metagross takes diddly squat from the Gig Drain. This is going too quick. Let's bring it down slow again. And so the Metagross actually misses the Meteor Mash. Both Solgaleo and Metagross have coverage in Earthquake, and so I decided to just see how much it does, and so we see the Sugar Berry. We're still 2-hit carrying the Metagross though, although it is definitely 2-hit carrying us as well. He wisely switches into Lugia, which is fair enough. I couldn't afford to click Sunsteel Strike in case he decides to stay in. However, once again, in a similar fashion to last game, Solgaleo now has enough damage on it that I just start clicking Sunsteel Strike. And so, yeah, so we continue to click Sunsteel Strike. It's 3-hit KO. Excuse me. Yeah, so this is kind of an uphill battle of a 1v1. But so I decided to show off the tech because why not? It's week 9 now. And so I show off the Z-Splash. And so we go down to the second Psy Shock. And so here I bring in Salazzle because it's going to be my second sack of the day already. Because I need a Toxic off on this thing. And so Salazzle now goes down as well. And we're 6-3. However, now, because we have Hex as well, this is a nice position for Giratina to come in because Giratina now wins this 1v1. And it also has a relatively nice matchup towards the rest of his mons because Metagross is slow enough that Hex will still KO. And it has the Toxic Hex, Sleep Talk, Rest Talk kind of set up for everything else bar the Naganadel. And for the Naganadel, I have Scarf Lando and also a Triage Comfey. But yeah, so what we see here is that we go through a kind of a set of moves where to the point where we're just waiting for the Lugia to die to Toxic. And so here we see that Arashi kind of moves on from trying to preserve the Lugia and actually sacks it off. He could have switched out to reset the timer on it for the Toxic. But either way, I don't think it really served much purpose beyond what it had already done. And so we now have Comfey. So the big thing here is that we now fall into a situation where with 3 Mons, they actually complement each other quite well for what we're having to face. So Comfey has the coverage to deal with Seismitoad, Torkoal, Metagross, and Hariyama quite well. However, it needs a reasonable amount of health and a calm mind up for kind of it to be able to really do some sort of damage. And so the other thing is it needs to be careful about how much damage it takes. The Landorus then also can kind of just click Earth Power at this stage, because I'm relatively confident that I can get the damage off on Seismitoad and Hariyama to the point where it should be able to KO. And so whilst this is not looking like a particularly easy situation to be in, it's actually still winnable. So we go for the HP ground on into the Metagross switch. I kind of predicted this because I felt like one of the Metagross, the Torkoal, or Naganadel was going to switch in here. It was also a nice. This was with Comfey out. It was a nice opportunity for Naganadel to actually switch in and have an opportunity to set up if it wasn't too careful, because of how limited Comfey's coverage is. But so we're going to continue on. The Solgaleo reveals the Bullet Punch. I decided to stay in and just continue to click HP ground, as so you never really know. Some Metagrosses will value coverage over the second Steel type move, or rocks, or both, and so it's just more intel into just understanding what might be where. My voice is going. And so we're able to take down the Metagross. However, we have taken quite a lot of damage, which is not ideal. But so here we see the Seismitoad come out to be then doubled into the Hariyama. And so the key thing here is to know that Hariyama actually has a really quite high health stat. So even from kind of just neutral, we're actually recovering around about a quarter of our health, and we can't be. I think everything that could touch us from Hariyama is like 3-hit KO kind of range. But so we managed to get a bit of damage off on the Hariyama as the Torkoal switches in, and so I don't want to switch anything else in because it's going to take a butt ton from it. And so I go for the HP ground. It takes it down to 26%. It's fine by me. But so we die to the Flamethrower. It's now a nice opportunity to have Landorus in. And so we KO the Torkoal. However, we also need to still be very wary of the fact that Seismitoad is close to full, and we can't KO the Seismitoad yet from full. There is just no way with kind of bulk and its actual just usual stats for us to be able to KO with the Earth Power from that range. I decided to just kind of see whether he was willing to double into Naganadel on the possible Toxic from Giratina because we've revealed Hex, and so I feel as if it's quite likely if you see Hex on a Giratina that Toxic is also going to be there. So what I'll just quickly explain the last two moves. So we switched into Landorus, trying to see whether that would happen. So it's also a free turn to then click U-turn back in. As so, Super's in a position where so he just doesn't want to over predict, because it can cost him quite dearly if he lets Landorus click Earth Power twice. And so we go for the U-turn back into Giratina on the Hydro Pump, which actually is only doing around about 13, 14, 15%, even with the Life Orb, which is doing a nice amount of chip on it as well. So having seen that he was reluctant to switch into either Hariyama or Naganadel, it could be Guts Hariyama as well. That was the other thing that I was slightly worried about. I feel it's easier to click the Toxic now. I feel more comfortable clicking it on the second Hydro Pump because he was I felt like he would predict the switch back into Lando again. And so he goes for the Earth Power, which we can see is doing just under a 4-hit KO. And so it's a free turn to rest. And so we're back up to a nice amount of health. And so we just go for the Sleep Talk, which we managed to pull a Hex out of, so it's actually going to be killed by Hex instead of a Toxic on the Seismitoad, and so we're in a relatively nice position. However, to win this game, it is slightly more complicated than what would first meet the eye. As so, we can take down the Hariyama with Giratina. We don't actually know what set the Naganadel is, so we could still just flat out lose if it's Scarf. But so Naganadel was one of Arash Supersuna's Z-Mons, so I was also confident that it was a Z move. But so that doesn't stop it from being a speed boosting Naganadel, which actually doesn't take off too much special attack investment either, from what I remember, because I've used it once or twice. So to try and put myself in the best position possible, what I actually needed to happen was for me to try and get the Hariyama as low as possible without KOing it with Giratina. And there was also... Oh, blimey, I'm full of gas and stuff. There was no guarantee that I could bring in Landorus for free on the Hariyama, because Hariyama has coverage for like Ice Punch, Knockoff, all of that stuff, which can really basically throw this this final phase of the game for me straight in the trash. So I kind of have to play carefully, and so what you're going to see is the fact that so I also didn't really think about this until the next turn after I'd clicked Toxic. So what you're going to see is so I'm going to click Toxic this time. And it's at this point that I realised that so a couple of turns earlier I was thinking about how I needed for Giratina to die versus the Hariyama, so that the Landorus switched in. Happily though, the knockoff or the Earthquake was odds on to kill the Giratina, and so if Toxic killed, I still would come in clean versus an unboosted Naganadel. But so the Hariyama is still up, but so we go for the Earth Power and we're able to KO the whole 5%, and Naganadel is not Scarf. So we win! We win a game in BBL. It was not all for nothing. We win 1-0. It was a very good game, very close game with Supersuna Arashi. Again, I want to apologise to you two and to Johnny for the fact of how late this is, because actually it's always nice hearing what your opponent was thinking about at any specific point. But yeah, so I kind of, it's interesting seeing the difference between this game and the game before, where so the game before I'd say was relatively equal. The Clefable plays really kind of, if you just do it from a standpoint, the Clefable plays one blue the game. Being able to get the Thunder Wave off on Gyarados and then getting the damage off on Landorus and Solgaleo definitely turned the game hard in his favour. It forced me to go for the unreliable moves. This game though, I really kind of through the first half of the game, there was no kind of forced errors. It was it was all on my part, from kind of just being a little just reckless with my mons. So just letting Corsola go down, whilst it is still only a Corsola, it could have been useful. It really could have been useful this game. As could have Salazzle, but so it kind of was needed to sort out Lugia, which actually was another thing, was that so Lugia was very vital to this game, and if I managed to get it out of the way relatively early, it meant that it caused fewer issues, because late game Lugia is the bane of my life whenever I come to Ubers. But yes, so as a 1-0 victory, we are now 1-8, and so going into the final game, so the two things to understand is that so actually Super Suna and Johnny GB were the two people who were 15th and 14th above me. As so I am in fact last going into this going into week 10. But so if I was able to beat Johnny by 3-0 or more, I could have come 14th overall, which would have, in my books after my season, would have been a result. I felt like the first two games I both kind of got semi-cheated out of, but also very, 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 very hard choked as well. And then kind of from week 3 to week 6, I both had very strong players, very strong opponents, and also under-prepped, apart from Gypsy's game. Gypsy's game was brilliant. And then kind of from week 7 onwards, I've actually really enjoyed it, despite week 7 and week 8 really, really struggling with hacks getting involved. And yeah, so coming into week 10 now, playing Johnny GB, I decided to bring a lot of memes. So what we see here is a Mega Gyarados running Whirlpool, Thunderwave, Rest, Crunch, Max Spadaf, a Encore, Fake Out, Fling, Thief, Toxic Orb, Salazzle, a Scope Lens, Shadow Claw, Shadow Sneak, Dragon Claw, Rock Smash, Giratina, a Mono Explosion Choice Band Corsola, because I'll be damned if I don't get a kill with it. And then, so the final two mons, you can see the Scolipede, which is running Lefties, Poison Point, Swords Dance, Baton Pass, Toxic Spikes, Iron Defense, Max Speed, Max HP. And then finally, my favourite mon, Breloom, Leftovers, Effect Spore, Attract, Counter, Laser Focus, False Swipes. Because we want to be falling in love with somebody and definitely not killing them, unless, of course, they start lashing out at us, at which point we'll bitch slap them to the next dimension. And yeah, so I have some bad news. These memes will never see the light of day in battle, unless somebody wants to come and battle me with JB's team now. As so, Johnny had gone on holiday. All credit, like I'm going to be mad about him going on holiday. But so he handed me the forfeit win. Which does mean that I do finish 14th. It's just a bit sad that I couldn't play with this team because, as you can tell, it's by far my best, absolute best best prep of the season, by far. I would have 6-0'd There was no match for this Whirlpool Thunderwave Rest Crunch Gyarados, apart from a Rotom though. But yeah, so I hope everybody's enjoyed. I apologise again profusely for just how darn late this is. These last 3 weeks I've been ridiculously busy with revision and sorting out other things to do with kind of my future. I'll say that much. But yeah, so the mid-term podcast review for just how I've done, what I'm learning, where things are going into the next part of this year should hopefully be out soon. I can't promise anything though because life's busy. You will see another season's worth of videos turn up soon. That's all I'll say before the review. So I hope everybody has a good Easter, because it's Easter Sunday on Sunday. Have a good evening, have a good week, play Mons, try not to have as bad luck as I do. Have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!